Hi there, Sandra here from the Schwowin's Nest. Thanks for joining me today. My first project is a smashed can DIY. These are so popular right now, I thought I would show you my version. This is a really big coffee can, and I cut off the bottom of it. The top was already open. And you can see here that I can actually squeeze this with my hand. It's really not that stiff of a can compared to something like a soup can. So now I'm just going to take my mallet, and this is a rubber mallet, and I'm just going to start giving it a little bit of a smash. I had to do a little bit on the top as well, just because the bottom was it just kept bouncing back on me. So you'll see me here now. I'm giving it some really good smashes. I started out a little gingerly, but now I'm just going to town and getting that thing smashed down. And there it is. I like to give all of the slick and shiny surfaces one good coat of a matte clear spray paint. I'm using Rust-Oleum brand because that's my favorite, but whatever you have is fine. If you don't have a spray paint, you could also do a coat of Mod Podge. I wanted to paint this a beautiful sage color, but I didn't have one that I was thinking in my head. So I had to mix two or three different colors. Actually, I think it was four by the time I got the color that I wanted. So a few different colors of green, and then I added a little bit of gray just to bring out a little bit more of a darker finish to it. If you have been with me for a while, you know I love to print things onto tissue paper and then attach them to my projects. This is a dragonfly and it's just a black and white image that I got from Pixabay.com. The link to Pixabay is down in my description box, and they're all free images that you can go and use for personal or commercial use. So what I'm doing here, instead of putting the Mod Podge on the can, I'm putting it on the wings first, just on the one side. I didn't want to have any excess Mod Podge around the dragonfly because that will change the color of the paint, and I didn't want to paint the whole can with Mod Podge because that would totally change the color of it and it would give it a different sheen. I wanted this to be just a really nice dull sheen like the paint, just to make it look old and more vintage. So I'm just going to be very careful and apply this with Mod Podge, put a little bit on the bottom, place it down, and then put some more Mod Podge on top, making sure that it's totally secure. I just love black and white buffalo check and black and white gingham. So I decided to line the bottom and the top of the can with one of these little ribbons that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to use some hot glue and just put a dab here and there just to make sure it stays in place. I'm going to use the gingham ribbon for the hanger on this can, but I'm just taking the bottom of each of the ends and tying a knot in them. That's going to give the hot glue a little bit something more substantial to grip onto. Remember that when you're using hot glue with metal, it dries really fast, so you've got to work a little bit quickly. I'm just going to press that knot down into the hot glue until it sets. I'll do the same thing on the other side. If you want to be able to see the hanger once you've got something inserted into the can, you'll need to make sure that it's a little bit longer than you would normally do. Otherwise, you won't see the hanger at all. So it's totally up to you. I wanted to distress the front of this just a little bit, so I'm taking a really stiff old brush and some white chalk paint, and I'm just very carefully pulling it in from the corners there and then just brushing it very lightly across just to give it a little bit more of a distressed look. Thanks so much to all of my current subscribers. I truly appreciate all of your support. If you're new to my channel and you like what you see so far, I would love it if you could hit that red button too. I love to use lavender in all of my decor, whether it's French country or farmhouse or modern farmhouse, whatever. I think lavender just screams farmhouse. If you have a different idea, let me know down in the comments. I'm curious to know what flower would be your reason to scream farmhouse. So I'm just going to add little bits of lavender. I'm probably going to just make them stand straight up and down because that's how they grow naturally. And I'm going to use a few different types of lavender just to give it a little bit more dimension. And I think this turned out really pretty. You'll have to let me know what you think about my take on the tin can smash. For this project, I'm using an old hardcover book that I've had hanging around my house. And instead of painting it, I decided just to use some craft paper and cover it up and just give it a new jacket. I want it to look a little old and weathered, so I'm taking the craft paper and I'm just going to crumple it up in my hands and then open it up and smooth it out just a little bit. This will just give it a little bit of a vintage vibe. Using a glue stick works best for this type of project. The Mod Podge would be a little too wet and would probably come through the paper and make it hard to work with. So I'm just going to fold over the inside cover as you see me doing here, pressing it down really firmly and creasing those edges. Then I'm going to turn the book around so I can do the same thing with the cover. I'm going to work my way all the way around to the other side of the book, and then I'm just going to fold over the insides, kind of make sort of like a gift wrap look with folded corners and glue that in place as well. So what I did a couple of weeks ago is splurge for myself, and I thought I deserved it. I love these IOD Sprig stamps. This is a set that I purchased, and I think it's probably going to be the only set that I purchased just because I can't seem to justify paying that much for occasional projects. So you will see me using these Sprig stamps quite often. I did buy some Stays On pigment because I wanted it to be a much better ink that I'd be using. So what I've done here is just inked up the sprig stamp and I'm going to place it down on the book. I left these on the backing and cut them out as you can see because I wanted to use that backer board as my sort of stamp block, I guess you could say. Hold it down really firmly and then just very gently go with your hands and your fingers and make sure you hit everything. This is still a practice for me. I'm still working on getting the right technique, but I think this turned out really pretty. One thing you have to do is season your stamps. So I'm taking a little bit of some fine grit sandpaper and just running it over the top of them just to get that slick surface gone so the ink sticks better. I used quite a few of the different types of stamps and created a little garden on the front of the book. If you don't want to purchase the stamps, but you like this kind of look, I do have a free printable on my website that has a bunch of sprigs on it. Using the same gingham ribbon that I used for my first project, I'm going to hot glue it to the back, wrap it around to the front, and then hot glue it on the back again. Ever since I learned how to make a really easy double loop two-finger bow, I've been putting more bows on my projects. So if you want to see a full tutorial on how to make a two-fingered bow, I have a link for it down in my description box and I take you through it step by step really slowly so you can see exactly how it works. I'm going to finish off this bow and then glue it to the front of the book. I also added a few little sprigs of greenery just for a pop of color, and I think this book looks amazing whether you lay it down or stand it up like I did. In keeping with the buffalo check theme that I have for my video today, I am going to create a buffalo check ribbon rag wreath. I really love the look of those. They're so nice and fluffy. So I'm going to be cutting 7 inches of the buffalo check ribbon, and then I'm going to tie it just once onto the wire wreath form, and then I'll just fluff it up. The wreath form, I believe, is from Dollar Tree. It's one of the 18-inch ones, but I did cut off the outer 2 rings. So these are just the inner 2 rings because I didn't want a huge wreath and I wanted to save that for something different. So again, just a 7-inch piece of the ribbon, and this is wired ribbon too, tying it once and then just pushing it up against the rest of them. It's already looking so fun. Look at how fluffy it is, and it's got some little strings and pieces hanging from it, but I just think it's so quirky and fun. I have these beautiful purple pansies that were a thrift store find many years ago. They've just been sitting around in my stash since I haven't used them on display anymore. So I'm going to cut them apart and then wire them onto the wreath frame. I'm also going to use a little bit of hot glue just to tack the pansies in place so they don't flop around. I'm going to just put a few different rows on. So I'm starting with these taller ones here, and then I'm going to just fill in the rest of the wreath form with a bunch of other pansies. When I got towards the bottom, I had some shorter stems, so I just bent them up a little bit, hooked them onto the wire frame, and used hot glue to hold them in place. And this turned out really good. Look at how beautiful and full that is. I just love it. The pansies also had some of these little buds, so I'm going to just use some hot glue and place them all in through the pansies themselves. And then I'm going to add a little bit of some greenery that is almost the color of lamb's ear, but it's actually just greenery that I spray painted a little bit with some white paint. Just give it a little bit of a dusting. And I think this wreath turned out really beautiful. I've got it hanging on my front door. It's really lightweight, but it stays on there perfectly, and I'm so happy with this wreath. For this project, I'm using one of the Dollar Tree Artists panels. I believe this one is the 6-inch one. I'm going to paint the inside of it, which means I'm going to do the frame portion and not the panel on the back. I want this to look like an actual framed picture. I created this little bike printable and printed it out on some cardstock. So I have 3 different images in this. I have the background, which looks sort of like a wood shiplap. I have the vintage bike, and then I grabbed a little basket and made that the basket on the bike. So I will have this available as a free printable on my website. I'm using a ruler just to make sure that my letters are straight, and I'm just going to freehand the words Hello Spring. I'm just using a regular black Sharpie marker, and I'm kind of trying to do a little bit of a Ray Dunn font. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to take a really fine tip black marker and just draw some shadow lines on the left-hand side of all of the letters. When I'm working with paper, glue sticks have become my best friend. I really love it so much better than Mod Podge because you don't get any wrinkles or bubbles in it. And if I wanted to put some Mod Podge on top, I certainly could, but for this, I didn't think it was necessary. Using a chip brush and a little bit of black paint, I'm just going to do some distressing around the edges, doing a little bit extra on the corners, and then I'm just going to run the brush up and down all of the sides to give that a little bit of texture as well. I'm adding the gingham ribbon just across the bottom of the sign, just on top of the wood frame portion, and I'm just going to hot glue it on either side. Since the basket has yellow flowers, I'm adding little tiny bits of green leaves and some tiny little yellow flowers. And I'm using these cool cactus tweezers that I got last year from a sweet subscriber. Her name is Denise. So thanks again, Denise. I use these all the time in my crafts. Then I added a couple of little bits of greenery and yellow sprigs to the top middle of the sign and added a white and black twine bow. And I think this sign turned out really cute for spring. I hope you enjoyed my projects today and got some inspiration to create some buffalo check decor or gingham decor for your home. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up. That helps me get noticed more on YouTube and helps my channel grow. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.